The first boss of the Rogue Legacy 2 Far Shores update, which is the first major update for the Rogue Legacy 2 Early Access, is a giant pirate skeleton called Void Beast Byarrrith. And the beginning of the fight is pretty straightforward. This boss has three main attacks. There is a large bar that he throws out. He has a jumping move where when he hits the ground, bones shoot at you horizontally. And then he has kind of a vertical bone toss, much like the regular enemy skeletons, but he shoots about a dozen of them up into the air. Now, all three of these moves are pretty easy to dodge. The large bar that he spits out, it always spins in the same direction regardless of which side of him you are on. All you have to do is wait for it to come out, and then you can just dodge underneath it or jump around it as you see fit. The jump that he does, where the bones shoot out horizontally, it's pretty easy to see that coming. Just make sure that you're in the air when he lands and you won't take any damage. Finally, the bones in the air can be a little tricky sometimes, but I find that whenever he's throwing bones in the air, it's best to be right next to him. Now this fight gets a little more complicated because when you have knocked off about a third of his health, a second big skeleton appears. That second skeleton is called Void Beast Halfar. And surprise, surprise, he is pretty much exactly like the first skeleton. In fact, if you've played the original release of Rogue Legacy 2, you'd know that they're putting in challenge bosses for each major release they do and then kind of removing them from the game once they release the next major update. In the first one, the challenge boss was 2 Lameks, which is the first boss of the game. This fight really plays out a lot like the 2 Lameks fight, only it's a little bit less complicated. The enemies are a little bit bigger, so they're a little harder to get around, where Lamek you could just double jump and dash around him. These guys, you're going to have to actually use your echo boots to get up and around each one of them when you're fighting them, but it kind of boils down to the same thing. The trick here is to identify each one of their 3 major attacks, know when each one of them is doing it, and then know where to move. When you get too tight into a corner where the enemy is getting too close to you, you're going to have to jump and use your echo boots to kind of downstrike up and over and around them. Keep them on one side of you at all times. Try not to get between them, because once you get between them, it gets a lot more tricky. Overall, though, I found that a lot of tactics just aren't possible for this particular boss. You're going to get into a lot of situations where you're going to take damage and there's nothing you can do about it. And for that reason, I kind of have a low regard for this particular boss. I don't find it to be pattern recognition that's going to help you. There's not a real good strategy here. You have to know what their 3 attacks are, try to keep them on one side of you, downstrike to get up and around them when they get on the wrong side of you, and that's it. You're going to get unlucky sometimes, and in this particular fight, there's a good chance that you're just going to have to level up and equipment up enough so that you can win this particular fight. Of all the bosses that I've seen in the 2 Rogue Legacy games that we have so far, I'd say that this one's probably the worst boss, just because there's not a lot of skill and strategy, like I previously said. You're just going to have to level up. For class choice, I don't really have a good recommendation. I can say that the Barbarian is probably not the best choice just because their DPS is low. The Barbarian really is something more that you would want to explore through the dungeon more than actually fight a boss, but maybe your playstyle is a lot different than mine and the Barbarian's going to work great for you. Class choice is going to completely, especially with this game, going to completely depend on you and your playstyle, so pick what you want. So there you have it. Just avoid their 3 attacks, keep them on one side of you when you have to, do the downward strike to get up and over them, keep that up, and eventually you will win this fight. If you're not having good luck, just level your guy up some more, find some new equipment, and try again. If you enjoyed this strategy video, then leave a like on this video, and if you liked this video and you're not a subscriber to the channel, take a look at some of my other videos. I review a lot of games, and if you like those videos, consider subscribing. Until next time, this has been Pixel.